Hello Starshine! My name is Liz and this is my channel, Simsational Stories. If you have not seen my videos before and you enjoy this one, please like and subscribe. And maybe check out my Facebook page where this whole thing began as well. All relevant links are in the description below. And of course, if you're a Sims player and you'd like to download any of the characters featured in my stories, just search the hashtag Simsational Stories on the Sims 4 gallery. All original content is created by This Is Not Eric. Alrighty then. So, welcome, and what is up, Buttercup? Are you having a good day or a bad day? Whichever your answer, please allow me to distract you from your life and tell you a story, a Simsational story. Before I begin though, I'd like to issue this blanket content and trigger warning. The following story is just Sims, hey. I'm not going to apologise for treating them terribly, if that's what I've done, but I do want to assure you now that although I mean absolutely no harm, I completely understand if you feel unable to consume my content. Many loves, and we will catch each other on the internet elsewhere. Okay, so now we've gotten that over with, let's go. Today's story is from Kelly-Anne Kalthis & Co, and we're at chapter 10. If you have not seen previous chapters and would like to catch up, there are playlists available on my channel so you can hear the entire story in chronological order. The rest of us are going to move on from where we left off last time though. So without further ado. In the whirlwind of short hours that had passed since she met Kyle Harris, Kelly-Anne Kalthis had at first forgotten to mention that she was a single mother of 5 children, all of whom had different fathers. She casually brushed it off the next day over a pancake breakfast Kyle had made them, dismissing her overnight abandonment of them as immaterial, since her eldest daughter Kelsey was a teenager now and could easily care for her younger siblings without risk. Kyle was prepared to take her at her word. She was their mother, after all, and she knew best. He'd never had much to do with children, and he wasn't that interested in starting, really. He was just happy to have Kelly-Anne to himself. They spent the day lazily, relaxing and talking. They got on surprisingly well, despite the gulf of differences between them, and the hours passed quickly. Back home, Kelsey did have things under control, but she was worried nonetheless. Her mother had always come home before. What if something had happened to her? Her 2 sisters hadn't really noticed yet, but Keith kept asking where Mama was. It was Kevin who first had the idea that she had probably just gotten yet another new boyfriend and hadn't told them yet. When Kelly-Anne finally did come home, she brought Kyle with her to introduce him to the kids. Kelsey was furious. First her mum disappears, literally disappears, for 2 days, and then when she finally does come home, she brings some bloke. Had she even thought about the kids once while she was gone? Or was she too busy partying and having fun, leaving Kelsey to parent kids that weren't even hers? Kelsey and Kelly-Anne argued on and off for the rest of the day. Kelly-Anne couldn't see what the big deal was. Kelsey had been fine, right? The kids had been fine. Everything was fine. It's not like there wasn't plenty of food in the cupboards. They had everything they needed, and Kelly-Anne had been showing trust in her children's abilities. It was good parenting. Kelsey was just being a drama queen. That night, Kelly-Anne detailed her many woes to Kyle, who had of course stayed over. Kelly-Anne gave him a condensed version of her life. Everything from falling accidentally pregnant to a married man who had subsequently abandoned her, to her arrangement with her landlord, Kaylee's father, and how utterly ununderstanding Kelsey had always been of her need to have a few moments of well-deserved freedom from parenting every now and again. The next day, Kyle confronted Kelsey over lunch. He wanted to know just what the heck she thought she was playing at. Her mother had had a hard life, but she had always provided for them, and Kelsey was being disrespectful. She needed to understand that being part of a family was helping each other out, and she was more than old enough to help take care of her little brothers and sisters in the rare event that Kelly-Anne took a night or 2 off for a break here and there. Kelsey was furious. Rare event? If it was a rare event for her mother to check out and leave Kelsey in charge of everything, then all her life had been a rare event. Kyle had absolutely no idea. How long had he even known Kelly-Anne? 3 days? And yet here he was lecturing Kelsey about how things were and were going to be. It was insane. He was insane. And her mother was insane too. The pair of them deserved each other. When Kelly-Anne finally got up, she had an angry teenage girl on her hands. Kelsey flat out accused her mother of being a negligent parent who didn't care about or love any of her kids. They were all mistakes anyway, right? That's probably why she was always trying to pretend they didn't exist, because she wished they didn't, right? And if all she was going to do was go out drinking all the time, they'd probably be better off without her awful influence. After Kelsey stormed out of the apartment, going to heck knows where, Kelly-Anne went back out to Kyle. To her relief, despite what he had overheard, he was still fully supportive of her, and put Kelsey's accusations down to her being a hormonal teenager who had no idea what adult life was really like. She may think that her mother had been doing nothing for her, but she had no idea what was being taken care of for her, and if her mother was really gone, she would learn a few things. In fact, Kyle casually suggested, why didn't they just teach Kelsey that exact lesson? What if, when she came home from her tantrum walk, her angry teenage wish that her mother would leave them all alone had actually happened? Kelly-Anne could come and stay at his place, and he would bet money on the fact that Kelsey would be calling begging for their help within days. And so that's exactly what they did. Kelly-Anne felt so much more like herself over at Kyle's apartment than at her own. The place was clean. He had a maid service that came 3 times a week, and there were no loud, sticky children demanding her attention. She was free to just be. Kyle loved her for exactly who she was, and she wasn't used to that, so it was nice to be able to spend time together and appreciate being appreciated. At first, Kelsey had no idea. After her fight with her mother, she'd gone over to her friend Roman Peterson's house to play video games. Kelsey and Roman originally met when they'd been put on a science project together a few months back, but when he'd noticed that her home life wasn't the greatest, Roman had reached out to Kelsey. He was a teacher's kid. Mrs. Peterson had actually been Kelsey's 4th grade teacher, but he never told his mum what was going on. He just listened when she wanted to talk. It was only when Kelsey finally went home that night, at about 10 p.m, that she found out that her mother had taken her at her word and left the apartment. Kelsey felt so guilty. She'd thought that she was teaching her mother a lesson by staying out so late, but all she'd done was do to Kevin what had been done to her so many times before, being left alone to look after his little siblings. Kevin had done a bang-up job though, and the littles were all fast asleep in bed by the time Kelsey got there. Kevin had helped Kelsey often enough over the years that he found doing it by himself an easy adjustment. He was almost a teenager already himself, so it had been no trouble to heat up some leftover grilled cheese sandwiches for the little kids and then get them to play together before bed while he did his homework nearby. They'd all been so good and easy to look after too. The Kalthis kids didn't hide anything from each other, and so they all knew what was going on. After she put Kevin to bed, Kelsey sat up with her first ever alcoholic drink. She was just so over it. She was barely even 14 years old, and she felt like a 30-year-old, stuck looking after a bunch of kids that weren't even hers. She couldn't believe her mother had just left them. And she had told Kevin to tell her that if she really thought it was so easy, she could try doing it alone for real. What kind of a mother does that to their kids? And that brings us to the end of Chapter 10 of Kelly-Anne Kalthis & Co. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can tune in soon to hear the next chapter. Or like I said, look us up on Facebook. Bye!